hair is not going to kill you, so it's not something we need to worry with right now. But my hair was always very long, and it was kind of like my favorite feature about myself, and it meant a lot to me. And the fact that like everyone knew that and nobody did anything about it, even though I'd asked, that will screw with your brain a bit.
Welcome to Love 518. And this is your girl Hadassah. And today we are talking about something that can literally happen to anyone. And this situation kind of opened your eyes up to where you really can't just be judgmental and judge people based on what you think they should do and how they should move, especially when you're sitting on the outside looking in. This young lady's situation is extremely different and also kind of hard to hear because it's something that I never knew exists and I didn't know was possible. Her situation is mind blowing, but just a little backstory. This client here, by some chance, by the algorithm or by like divine intervention, seen my videos before her hair got matted and was very intrigued by my videos and was wondering like, okay, well, this is different. I've never seen people hair get matted before. I didn't know this was a possibility. And I think maybe months later, she has like a common cold, like a simple common cold. Like everybody gets, a common cold, just something simple. And she woke up one day and she felt like numbness in her leg. Like, how when you sit down, like crisscross applesauce and your leg goes kind of numb when it has a tingling sensation to it? Well, she was feeling that in her legs and it just wouldn't go away. So she went to the hospital and she gets there, and overnight, her whole life changes. Overnight. So I'm going to let you guys hear her story from her mouth and give you an understanding on how no one really plans for their hair to be this way. No one thinks their hair will be this way, especially when you really love and care for your hair and you try to use the best products and you try to use the best things and you care for yourself. Your hair getting matted a lot of times cause depression. And a lot of people like to think, oh, well, maybe they were depressed before, or how does someone let they get their hair this way? And then it's a very common question because I hear that a lot, especially when I tell people I detangle hair for a living. Oh, how does someone let their hair get matted? No one lets their hair get matted. It happens. The same way you don't plan for a car accident. The same way you don't plan for unforeseen things. It just happens. And next thing you know, your life changes forever, regardless of the situation. It just changes. So I want you guys to listen with an open ear and an open heart and not be biased or try to, what you call it, Monday, what do you call it, Sunday quarterback or Monday quarterback. Y'all know what I'm saying. That thing that people do. Well, I would have done this and I should have. No, you wouldn't. Because no one plans for things like this to happen in your life. You don't think this is a possible. You never think just having a common cold, that your body was shut down. Come on. So, how long has your hair been matted for?
About 6 months.
Okay, so can you share with our audience how your hair got matted?
Sure. Well, it's been matted for about 6 months. I got Guillain-Barré, which is where your immune system gets activated from, say, like a little cold or something. And then instead of calming down afterwards, it decides it would rather attack your nerves. And it eats the sheath around your nerves, so your brain and nerves no longer communicate correctly. I went to the hospital, I think it was December 30th, with severe brushed my hair. And for the 3 weeks I was in the hospital, my hair got matted. And then from there, finding somebody to fix it took forever until I was well enough to schedule and come out here.
Okay, so what are some of the things you heard from family members or loved ones once they noticed your hair was matted?
Well, a lot of people are like, why didn't you plan ahead? But it's like, how do you plan ahead for an unexpected illness or an accident? It's not like, you're contacted ahead of time and told what's going to happen. I was also told, well, you should have used a silk scarf or braided your hair. It's like, at the same time, again, there's just not planning for this, and your brain energy often goes elsewhere other than just worrying about your hair at the time. I've also heard people say, well, you should have cut it a little bit so it would be easier to maintain. Again, you can't plan for this. And by the time I got out of the hospital and could think about stuff like that, it was already matted and too late. And it was matted up in such a way it was either shave it all off or get it all untangled.
So how has life been for you now, having to be kind of confined in a wheelchair? Because you went from walking, living a quote unquote normal life, to now you're confined to a wheelchair, or even having to have someone when you first weren't able to use your arms to feed you. So how has life been for you then?
Well, it's definitely been a big adjustment because there's so many little things you take for granted, like even being able to scratch and itch yourself. For the first several months after the hospital, I couldn't even feed myself. My wife had to do it. Now, if I want to go somewhere, my wife has to physically pick me up and transfer me into my chair and then out of my chair again. I can't do that. So there's a lot of kind of trying to find what you can contribute in life and what the meaning of life is when you can't contribute in the obvious ways that people find meaning in, like being able to work and make money, for instance, or cook dinner or clean the house.
Just want to say, why didn't the nurse help you?
I have no idea. I asked several times and they did not. I assume, I'm being charitable here and assuming it was probably that nurses are dramatically understaffed. And while, hair is not going to kill you if you don't brush it or something, but at the same time, being able to feel like yourself and have that sense of normalcy is really, really important when you're recovering from a severe disease, especially when it's had such life-altering results. Like, I used to love to sew and make lace and do jewelry making and all these other things with my hands, and I can't use my hands anymore. So any little thing that kind of feels like me is really important, and I think the meaning of those things gets kind of devalued by people who can just go and brush their hair whenever they want to.
They're asking why haven't your wife or family member combed your hair?
I did ask them again. I'm really not sure why. I suspect at first they figured I would get better and could just take care of it myself. Obviously that didn't happen. And then by the time everyone realized that, it was just too late. I know my wife feels really bad that she didn't brush my hair and really guilty about it. I don't want her to feel badly about it, but I guess it's just one of those things. It's like, well, hair's not going to kill you, so it's not something we need to worry with right now. But my hair was always very long, and it was kind of like my favorite feature about myself, and it meant a lot to me. And the fact that everyone knew that and nobody did anything about it, even though I'd asked, that will screw with your brain a bit.
Yeah, it kind of pisses you off a little bit.
It does. I'm still angry because none of this had to happen. All it would have taken was someone to brush my hair 2 or 3 times, and I wouldn't be going through all of this pain. It was emotionally distressing. I didn't feel like leaving the house for months, even though I physically could, because I just frankly looked like an idiot. And it hurt. It was very difficult to sleep, very painful to sleep. So it's such a waste. So if you ever have a friend or family member in that situation, remember it's a big thing, and it does mean a lot, even if it's not necessarily going to kill them if you don't fix their hair.
When did you leave the hospital? How long were you in the hospital first?
I was in the hospital for 3 weeks, so I got out around mid-January.
And were you able to have like any mobility, or were you just
I had no mobility. At that point, I couldn't even sit up or anything. Now I at least can sit up and I can kind of roll around in bed enough to like move across my bed and get things from different areas. So I've got a little bit of mobility, but I can't function outside of my bed.
And how long after that did it take you to be able to like eat?
It probably took about 3 months after I got out of the hospital before I could start trying to feed myself. And then it probably took another month for me to actually be good at feeding myself so it wasn't going all up my nose and down my shirt, etc. It was it really took a long time. It took me probably again about 3 or 4 months before I was able to use my phone well enough that I could use predictive text or something to send text messages. So I couldn't use my phone at all. I had facial paralysis at first, so the face, where you log in, it uses your face identification on your phone. My phone didn't even recognize me again until like the end of February.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and of course I couldn't quite punch the numbers in, so I couldn't even get into my phone myself for probably 2 months. It's like not nearly as pretty as it was when I died. Yeah, it was a deep, vibrant color.
You can tell it's a pretty purple too. Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah, because right here is still kind of like
in here.
Two-toned.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, considering it's been so long since I topped up the purple, I'm kind of impressed it's still around.
Because it hasn't been really touched by anything. It's like
or rinsed.
It's like
in the shadows,
like one of those abandoned houses that's just like left in time.
And I'm extremely shocked nurses didn't help groom.
Yeah, I am too. I've actually heard a lot of people say they should have done that, and I'm thinking about looking into that because it's really inappropriate. They didn't brush my teeth at all either. I got a severe oral thrush infection. They skimped on actually everything. I didn't get bathed at all while I was in the hospital. I was able to convince people on like 2 occasions to get me a washcloth to at least rub a wet washcloth against my face. But there were a lot of pretty bad failings in that regard.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, one day it took 5 hours to get someone to come in and help change me because I'd gone to the bathroom and I couldn't like move out of it or anything, and I ended up getting really bad sores.
Oh my God, I am so sorry to experience that.
And of course they blamed that on the nursing staffing shortage, which I'm sure it is. But that's incumbent on hospitals to have enough staff to take care of the needs of their patients.
And also take care of their staff and pay them well.
Mm-hmm.
So they would come to work. Because
I was really, most of the time, I was in the ICU for a while, but for a lot of the times I had the nurses tell me like I was the most debilitated patient they had in the ward. So I can't imagine they had to do a lot of these things for most other patients. So it kind of makes it even weirder. Like, so you didn't have time to do this with me? What?
Being the worst?
Yeah. Like, I couldn't get out of bed. And then you have some guy who's just there with, like, he had a fever and he didn't feel well. But, like, he could get up and move. And he was getting the nurses to, like, bring him drinks and snacks and... It's like, so were you busy getting him stuff he could have done for himself?
Yeah.
And then leaving me in the bed where I couldn't even move? Oh, sorry, that still really annoys me.
Yeah, I'm triggered by that too.
Because the more I hear from other people, the more I realize that was not okay and possibly it wasn't even legal. I mean, they did vitals and medications and all of that on schedule, but anything above and beyond that kind of stuff, the stuff that they don't actually have to log anywhere, they didn't do. They wanted to send me to a nursing home, but the only one that my insurance would cover was 3 hours away from home, and I have a 10-year-old daughter, and I just couldn't go without seeing her for 3 or 6 months, really.
Know that this could happen to anyone, and give love and give grace to people, because you want that for yourself. In order for you to receive that for yourself, you have to give to others. This client is kind of the first client where I've ever been in a situation where I'm like, it probably would have been better off for her to kind of cut her hair because she was heartbroken. She was really heartbroken. Imagine having hair down to your back and you really love it. Not only did her hair texture change from being matted, but her hair got really, really fine due to the medication. And it was like all her hair, even from her scalp, was very fine. So that wasn't even just a detangling process, but her hair in general was fine. So imagine having your hair matted the whole time, but your hair's shedding and you're losing hair because of the medication you're on and not combing it, and breakage because of the color. I don't know who this is for. I don't know who needs to hear this, but God loves you, regardless if you believe or not. So keep going, keep fighting, keep pushing, because it might be a little dark today, but like a seed in the ground. It's dark for a little bit, but once it breaks through that soil, baby, it's gonna be light. It's gonna be sun. And even when it rains, that rain is there to help you grow and flourish. So I want to tell you guys, I'm sending love and light your way, and you got this.